Work's due to start later this year on safety improvements along Melnea Cass Boulevard. The artery is noted for crashes, traffic congestion, and bumpy rides for bicyclists. But residents in Roxbury and the South End are concerned the project also calls for removing some trees that have been lining the road for decades. To tell us why that matters, our South End resident with the group Friends of Melnea Cass Boulevard, Ivonne Lalyre, and executive director and co-founder of Speak for the Trees Boston, David Meshoulam. Thank you both very much for being with us.
Our pleasure.
Thank you.
I want to start with Ivonne, because for people who don't live in the neighborhood, they might be wondering, why are trees such a big deal? What do they mean to you?
Well, in general, trees are well known for their benefits to the climate and the neighborhoods. They are oxygen providers, they purify the air, they provide shade, and they absorb water, so they prevent flooding. Those are the main benefits of trees. And in our neighborhood, because there is so much asphalt around, we have a heat island in the middle of the neighborhood, and that is the boulevard. It is so hot in the summer that people cannot go out sometimes. People with asthma have problems, or elderly people cannot go out. And we feel that this is an environmental problem to remove the trees.
Now, a heat island can be a scientific abstraction, but if you're in the neighborhood, you're walking around the block in July or August, do you notice the difference?
Mm-hmm. Yes, you can tell the difference between being under the tree and not under the trees. I mean, as soon as you get out of the shade of the trees, you can feel that it's much hotter. Also, we have lost trees, for example, along tropical foods. We lost a lot of trees there, and we can feel definitely that the temperatures are higher and more uncomfortable in the summer.
Turn to David Meshoulam. The way this project is described is, yes, they're going to remove some trees. I've seen numbers like 100 or 200. I've also seen that maybe they're going to plant as many as 200 trees. Is that a wash, or do you see a real loss here?
Well, thanks for the question, Chris. I think what the numbers we've looked at for the past couple of years have shifted. So it's a moving target, and I think that's part of the frustration we're facing. The latest numbers are 121 trees to be removed outright. That number started at about 43 when this project was first suggested or first brought forward, and it's ballooned to 121. And then another 200 or so are going to have their roots severely compromised. So overall, we're looking at close to 350 trees that are going to be lost. And these are not just small trees. These are significant trees. These are what we call mature trees. And they're going to be replaced, they claim, with 250 trees that are not mature trees, that are small trees that are about 2.5 inches in circumference versus 15 inches or so for some of the trees we're looking at. So the catch-up time, I mean, not only are you losing all these mature trees, but now you have these small trees that are going to take decades to catch up if they survive, right? New tree plantings are prone to die in the first 2 to 3 years due to just the shock of being transplanted. So we don't see how this is going to be a wash in any way, especially in the 5 years of the project. And then looking ahead to the decades that come, there's going to be significant canopy loss.
Now, how do you measure canopy loss against carbon capture? I've seen somebody observe that younger trees do more for carbon capture than trees that are maybe more than 30 years old. You know more about this. How does it come across to you?
So the research I've read actually shows that mature trees do a lot more carbon capture than young ones, is that the growth and the absorption of carbon, because a mature tree is so big and has so much photosynthesis going on compared to a young tree, it's able to actually capture more. I can't remember exactly where the sort of maximum year of capture is, but I believe it's around year 30 or 40 of a tree's life, that really the benefits are more significant when with these young trees. Now it's complicated because of the species and urban versus forest trees. Really what we're looking at here though, Chris, I want to make clear, is not so much the carbon capture, but the environmental impact it's going to have on residents of the community. These are trees that provide immense environmental benefits to residents, including, like Ivonne mentioned, cooler air, cleaner air, and purifying the water, the stormwater runoff. Those are really the benefits that we're concerned about here at the community level.
Ivonne, are you worried about the difference? Because I think I've seen that a heat island can mean that you're going to have more respiratory problems if you live pretty close to it.
Yes, yes, yes. I don't have respiratory problems, but I have neighbors who do. And they are concerned definitely about the air. There's also something that I wanted to point out is that I don't think we've had any flooding in Melnea Cass Boulevard. I've never seen flooding on Melnea Cass Boulevard. I used to have flooding in my neighborhood, in my house, and I planted a tree in the backyard, and that ended the flooding. So that's another important aspect of the trees. They really absorb the water.
Of course, the way this is planned in the road here is that they say that some of these trees have to be removed so you can have more safety in terms of pedestrian crossings, so you can have more capacity for bike travel. Doesn't that have to be factored in?
Well, that's not the problem. The problem with this project is that the community has not been involved. This has not been a community planning process. We were presented with a project to spend $35 million and with a design, and we were asked to respond to it. When we have had the walkthroughs the neighborhood with the politicians and the planners, and we've said all we want is safe traveling. We want lower speeds. We want safe cross intersections. And we want you to repair the sidewalks, do snow removal. These trees have not been taken care of in all these 40 years. They have not been taken care of. And I can show you what's the result of new plantings right on Columbus, between Melnea Cass, between Columbus and Tremont. The trees that have been planted, on Charlotte, on Harrison Avenue, and how many of them have died in the few years that they've been around. There is no maintenance of the trees in this area. So we've lost so many trees. And the sidewalks have never been repaired. We have a beautiful two-way bike path that needs simply repair. We said, repair the bike path. And they have come back to us and say, okay, we'll think about it. And then nothing. They have come back with more stuff. For example, drainage. Who needs drainage when we have all these trees? We don't need to fix any drainage. There is no problem of drainage. The intersections, we need a light that stops 4 ways. When can they do that? We need to reduce the speed of the traffic. I've never seen a sign that says that the speed on Melnea Cass is 25 miles per hour. Cars just zoom through Melnea Cass when there is no traffic. And it's a safety issue. Those are our issues, but the planners have come back with this huge designs, blueprints, and 2 bike paths when there's already a project to build a bike path in the street over on Ruggles Street. It's a bike path that makes much more sense because it connects to Ruggles Street with Dudley. In any case, we've said again and again, don't touch the trees. We want to keep our trees. We need them.
David, what about that? I think the plan, as Ivonne mentioned, calls for having a bike path on both sides of the boulevard. Do you think that it's enough to just have one that's maybe more smoothed out?
You know, I'm going to defer here to the work that Ivonne and Melnea Cass Boulevard has done in their community advocacy, and they've proposed multiple plans to make sure that the transportation needs are met. I think there's a way, according to what I've seen, of creating safe passage for bicyclists and not moving the curb. The real issue here is changing the curb on Melnea Cass, which is going to require significant tree removal. We can get more or less the same transportation benefits, improve the streetscape without having to move the curb at all. That to me is the issue. And by moving the curb, you're forcing the project not only to be exorbitant in price, not only to take 5 years, but you are shutting down the opportunity for residents to have fresh air. And I just want to bring this home really in this COVID era, as we're thinking about inequity in our urban infrastructure, and how that's played out in the past couple of months, and how we've seen much higher mortality rates amongst communities that don't have these environmental stewards to care for them. We have higher asthma rates in communities that lead to higher mortality rates, communities that lack tree canopy coverage. And that's a real worry. This is a life and death issue for many communities. And I just wanted to quickly, if I could, share with you exactly the map. And if I could have screen sharing, I would do that. The map here of the heat island effect in that neighborhood. It's these trees are really cooling down significant parts of Melnea Cass, not just the boulevard itself, but the surrounding blocks. And if you look at the heat island map, you can see that these trees are air conditioning hundreds and hundreds of homes.
Ivonne, I know that this boulevard was originally conceived as a highway connector, but when I see the language around this reconstruction project, they call it people-centered, creating a gateway to the neighborhood. You live in a neighborhood. What's your idea of a gateway?
I think we should think of Melnea Cass as a greenway. That we should plant more trees and make it greener. Why can't we have a Rose Kennedy Way on Melnea Cass? We have so much open space that we can use to increase the canopy instead of reducing it. And that's what I think the neighborhood would prefer. But I wanted to bring here the work of our new chief of equity, who said that when this process of stopping the expressway, I wasn't around, I'm sure you were.
Before our time, maybe.
Yes, it involved immense and very sustained community involvement, and that has not happened here. We did not choose the planners. We received this project like planted on us and asked to react. That's not the way our tax dollars should be spent. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in for a minute because Carolyn Crockett, who is the new chief of equity over at the city, actually wrote her dissertation that became a book called People Before Highways. And that's what Ivonne is referring to. It's a historical analysis of the movement to make sure that that area, that interstate, wasn't built through Roxbury. And Melnea Cass is the legacy of what's left over from that. It's sort of a compromise, but in that compromise, there were hundreds of trees planted, over 600 trees there that line the boulevard.